You did everything right. You went to college, got the job, and you're earning a salary your parents would have called comfortable. And yet, every single month, almost half your paycheck disappears before you can even think about saving it. It goes to rent. Not a mortgage, not an investment, rent. A payment that builds zero equity and goes up every single year regardless of whether your salary does. Right now, more than 44 million American households rent their homes. In major cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Miami, renters spend an average of 40 to 50% of their take-home pay just keeping a roof over their heads. Your parents bought a house at 25. Your generation is renting at 35 with no end in sight. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to 1944. Imagine it's the end of World War II. Millions of soldiers are coming home. The government is terrified of economic collapse, so Washington does something radical. They launched the GI Bill and a massive expansion of the Federal Housing Administration. The idea is simple: make home ownership so affordable, so normal, so accessible, that the middle class has a stable foundation to build on. It worked. By the 1960s, the United States homeownership rate had climbed to nearly 65%. Developers were building hundreds of thousands of single-family homes a year. Mortgage subsidies made borrowing cheap. And for about 40 years, the deal was clear. Work hard, save a little, buy a house by your mid-20s. Then came 2008. In September of 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. The housing market imploded. Millions of Americans lost their homes to foreclosure. Over 7 million properties hit the distressed market in just a few years. It was the worst housing crisis since the Great Depression. And while ordinary families were being evicted, someone else saw an opportunity. Here is how the system actually works, and it is not what most people think. After the crash, the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to near zero to stimulate recovery. Suddenly, borrowing money was essentially free. Hedge funds and private equity firms, companies like Blackstone and their subsidiary Invitation Homes, had access to billions in cheap capital and a foreclosure market full of distressed single-family homes. Between 2012 and 2017, institutional investors bought approximately 300,000 single-family homes across America. Think about that number. 300,000 homes that would have eventually been sold back to individual buyers, families like yours, were instead captured as permanent rental inventory. In Atlanta, Invitation Homes bought entire neighborhoods at a time. In Phoenix, institutional buyers were outbidding families in all-cash offers within hours of a listing going live. In Tampa, Cleveland, and Charlotte, the same story played out block by block. In a normal housing market, foreclosed properties get absorbed by new buyers and the ownership stock recovers. In the market after 2008, that supply was permanently converted. Those houses did not re-enter the ownership market. They became rentals. Forever. This is what economists call the financialization of housing. It is the process by which a home stops being primarily a place to live and starts being primarily a financial asset, something to hold, extract income from, and eventually sell to another investor. When that shift happens, every incentive in the system changes. The landlord does not benefit from you building equity. They benefit from you never leaving. But here's where it gets truly dark. You might be thinking, okay, but that just affects single-family homes. What about apartments? Why is city rent so insane? The answer is zoning. It is the hidden wall that nobody talks about. Most land in major American cities, in some cases up to 75% of residential land, is zoned exclusively for single-family homes. That means building apartments is illegal in the most desirable neighborhoods. You cannot add density. You cannot build up. The supply of housing in high-demand areas is legally capped. Think about what that means economically. Demand for housing in cities keeps growing. There are more jobs and more people relocating. But supply is frozen by law. Basic economics tells you what happens next. Prices go up, and they keep going up because there is no mechanism to bring them back down. So, where does that leave us? You've got institutional buyers capturing the ownership market, and zoning laws strangling the apartment supply. Now here's the catch that made everything worse. In 2022, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates aggressively, hiking rates from near zero to over 5% in about 18 months. The theory was that higher rates would cool housing prices, and in a sense, they did. Home sales slowed dramatically, but rent did not drop. It kept climbing. Why? Because of what economists call the lock-in effect. Homeowners who bought or refinanced in 2020 and 2021, when mortgage rates were around 3%, have no incentive to sell. If they sell, they would have to buy again at 7% rates. Their monthly payment would nearly double. So they stay. Inventory dried up. The for-sale market froze. And all those people who would have bought homes instead competed harder for a shrinking pool of rentals. More demand. Same supply. Higher rent. Now here is the part that almost nobody knows about. In 2022, a ProPublica investigation revealed that most large institutional landlords were using a software platform called RealPage to set their rents. Here's how it worked. RealPage collected rent data from all of its clients across entire metropolitan markets. The algorithm then recommended daily rent prices to maximize revenue across the whole portfolio, and because most major landlords in a given city were all using the same software with the same data, rents moved in near-perfect coordination, without landlords ever needing to pick up the phone and agree on prices. In the industry, this is called algorithmic pricing. Federal prosecutors have another word for it. In 2024, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against RealPage, accusing them of enabling rent fixing, essentially a cartel run by software. Think about it from a renter's perspective. If you are in Phoenix or Denver or Nashville, you think you are choosing between competing apartments from different landlords. What you do not know is that all of them are consulting the same algorithm, which is pushing prices up across the board. The competition you thought existed was largely an illusion. And if you think you will just wait it out until the market corrects, there is another layer to this. Enter build to rent, the newest chapter in housing financialization. Across the Sun Belt in places like Phoenix, Dallas, and Jacksonville, entire new residential developments are being built specifically to be rentals. Not starter homes, not condos, whole neighborhoods of single-family houses and townhomes designed from day one to never enter the ownership market. Companies like American Residential Properties and Next Metro have raised billions in capital specifically for this model. The pitch to investors is simple: guaranteed long-term rental income from people who cannot afford to buy in markets that will keep growing. What you are watching in real time is the normalization of permanent renting. Not as a life stage, something you do in your 20s before you buy, but as a permanent condition. A generation that rents forever. And the companies building these communities are betting billions that this is exactly what happens. So, where does that leave us? Here's what you can actually do about this. Number 1, make zoning a voting issue. Local elections, city council races, zoning board appointments, mayoral primaries, decide whether your city allows more housing to be built or keeps density illegal. Most of these elections are decided by a few thousand votes. Vote for candidates who support upzoning and mixed-use development. Number 2, push back on algorithmic pricing where you can. When apartment hunting, ask whether the landlord uses RealPage or similar software. The market rate you're being quoted might be the output of a pricing cartel, not actual supply and demand. Number 3, consider geographic arbitrage if your work is flexible. The rent-to-income math in mid-sized cities like Tulsa, Knoxville, or Pittsburgh is fundamentally different from New York or San Francisco. Opting out of an overpriced market is not giving up. It is a rational move. Number 4, understand the difference between rent control and housing supply reform. Rent control protects existing tenants from sudden price spikes, and that matters. But the better long-term fix is more supply. Pressure politicians to explain how they are addressing the supply side, not just the price side. Number 5, stop blaming yourself. You are not failing because you are bad with money. You are navigating a housing market that was systematically redesigned over the last 15 years to extract maximum value from renters. Housing didn't accidentally become unaffordable. It was transformed, piece by piece, policy by policy, algorithm by algorithm, from a basic human need into a financial asset class. You're not looking at a broken system. You're looking at a system that's working exactly as designed, just not for you. The trap is deep, and it's built to keep you renting. But at least now you know how the game is played. If this opened your eyes, please hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment below telling us what city you are in and what you are paying for rent.